A rainy morning. Ryan boarded a city bus, then realized his wallet was empty.
Don't worry. Take your seat. I've got this.
Thank you, sir.
Ryan sat quietly, holding on to one simple promise. Someday, he'd repay that kindness. Ryan stared through the rainy window, silently promising himself he'd never forget this kindness.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Ryan stepped off the bus, never knowing this moment would return 15 years later.
15 years passed, but David never forgot the grateful smile on that rainy morning.
15 years later, Ryan was a doctor. One ordinary morning, fate brought him back to David.
Ryan watched the bus approach. Then he saw David's face and instantly remembered that rainy morning.
David?
David stepped off the bus. Ryan approached him slowly.
Do you remember me?
David studied Ryan's face. Then Ryan smiled and said,
"You once helped me when I had nothing.
David finally remembered.
The empty wallet. That was you?"
Ryan smiled. That was me.
Ryan had never forgotten that kindness. "I never forgot what you did for me." Now, he finally had a chance to thank the man who started it all. That small kindness changed my life. "I only did what anyone should. Not everyone does," David smiled. He never expected that tiny favor to matter so much, or to bring Ryan back into his life. Then Ryan noticed David looked tired. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm fine, just a long day," David smiled, hiding how difficult life had become.
Ryan looked closer. David's worn-out smile told him something was wrong, even though David refused to say it.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. Ryan gently asked about David's life.
How have things been? Things have been difficult lately, but I'm managing.
Ryan looked at David and made a decision. The kindness from 15 years ago was about to come full circle.
"Maybe I can help."
Ryan asked David to come inside.
Come inside with me.
David hesitated, but Ryan smiled and said,
You once helped me. Let me help you now.
David followed Ryan inside. For the first time in years, he felt that maybe his story was finally changing. Ryan led David toward a quiet office. He had something important to tell him, and David had no idea what was coming.
There's something I need to tell you.
Inside the office, Ryan sat across from David. Then he opened a folder and revealed something David never expected.
Inside the folder was a letter from 15 years ago. I kept it. David stared at it, realizing Ryan had kept it all this time.
David remembered that rainy night. "I remember you." Ryan had been the stranger he helped. "I knew you would." Now, that simple act had returned with a life-changing surprise.
Ryan smiled and said, 15 years ago, you paid my fare when I had nothing. Today, I can finally repay your kindness.
David shook his head. You don't owe me anything. Ryan smiled. Maybe not then, but you deserve a second chance now.
Ryan slid a document across the desk. David stared at it, realizing this wasn't just a thank you. It was a new beginning.
David read the document slowly. Ryan had arranged a fresh start for him, proving one small act of kindness can travel farther than we imagine.
You really did this for me? You helped me when you didn't have to.
David finally understood. I never forgot that night. The stranger he once helped had never forgotten him. Neither did I. And now, David's life was about to change forever.
Ryan looked at David and said, One small kindness changed my life. Today, I just wanted to change yours.
David looked at the document again, then smiled through grateful tears. For the first time in years, he believed tomorrow could be different.
Thank you. You earned it. Ryan walked David toward the door. David paused, looked back at the letter, and smiled. Some kindness never truly disappears.
Outside the office, David thanked Ryan one last time. Ryan smiled and said,
"Thank you, Ryan. You gave me hope once. I'm just giving it back." As they walked, David realized something simple. Kindness had come full circle. The fare he once paid had changed 2 lives.
Years ago, David gave away one small kindness. Today, that kindness returned with something priceless: hope, dignity, and a second chance.
David didn't know where this new path would lead, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid of tomorrow. He was ready. The doors opened, and sunlight filled the hallway. David stepped forward, carrying more than a document. He carried hope for a new life. Outside, David stopped beneath the morning sun. He looked at Ryan and smiled, knowing one simple act had come back to him at the perfect moment.
Thank you for that day. David thanked Ryan one final time. Then they shook hands, both knowing their lives had crossed for a reason neither could have imagined.
They went their separate ways, but neither man would forget this day. Sometimes, the smallest kindness creates the biggest change. David walked home with a lighter heart. He had lost much, but one act of kindness had given him something priceless: hope. That evening, David returned to his quiet home. He placed the document down, looked at it, and whispered, "Maybe everything happens for a reason." David sat quietly beside the table, remembering the day he paid that stranger's fare. He never imagined that tiny kindness would return years later. David remembered that rainy morning 15 years ago. He had only wanted to help a stranger. He never expected the world to remember. One small decision had traveled 15 years through 2 lives. David finally understood, kindness is never truly lost. The next morning, David woke with purpose. He opened the door, stepped outside, and smiled. His second chance had finally begun. David walked into the morning light, carrying the document. He didn't know what came next, but he finally believed something better was waiting.
As David walked, he passed the bus stop where everything had begun. He paused, smiled, and remembered the stranger he once helped.
15 years ago, David had no idea who that passenger was. Today, he understood the lesson. Kindness can travel farther than we ever imagine.
David kept walking, carrying the lesson with him. A small kindness had changed his life, and now he knew exactly what he wanted to do next.
David read the community board carefully. Then he smiled. Tomorrow, he would start giving others the same chance someone once gave him. David walked away from the board with a new purpose. He would turn one small act of kindness into a lifetime of helping others.
David kept walking, unaware that his simple decision would inspire others. Sometimes, one small kindness becomes the beginning of something much bigger. Years ago, David helped one stranger without expecting anything. Now, he carried that lesson forward, ready to make someone else's day a little brighter.
David reached the community table and stopped. He looked at the empty chairs, then smiled, realizing his next chapter could help someone else.
David had once given someone a chance. Now, he was ready to do it again. He pulled out a chair and waited with a smile.
David waited patiently beside the table. He knew that helping someone didn't require much. Sometimes, it only required being there. Then David noticed someone approaching the table. He straightened, smiled warmly, and prepared to offer the same kindness that once changed his life.
The stranger sat down, and David welcomed him. He explained that this table was for anyone needing a fresh start. Take your time. This is here for you.
The stranger listened quietly. Then he looked at David and said, "Thank you." David smiled, knowing kindness had come full circle. David looked at him and smiled. Years ago, one simple choice had changed everything. Now, that same kindness was beginning again. The stranger stood and thanked David once more. "Thank you, David." David simply smiled. "Take care." He knew the best way to honor kindness was to keep passing it on. David watched him leave, then turned back to the table. One small act of kindness had become a new beginning. David looked at the empty chair and smiled. Somewhere, another person was waiting for a chance, and David was ready to give it. David knew that kindness never really ends. Sometimes, it simply waits for another person to carry it forward. Years earlier, David had helped one stranger. Now, that kindness was spreading farther than he could ever imagine. David kept showing up because he had learned that one kind moment can become a lifetime of hope for someone else. A new morning brought a new opportunity. David looked toward the waiting chair, ready to help whoever came next. Then, from across the sidewalk, an adult approached the table. David looked up and welcomed him with the same kindness that started it all. The man sat down, and David welcomed him. Sometimes, all someone needs is one person willing to believe that tomorrow can be better.
The man shared his story with David. "I almost gave up. He had almost given up, until someone reminded him that one good day can change everything. Tomorrow can still be better."
David pointed to the empty chair and smiled. "There's always room for one more." And the man finally smiled back.
For David, this was never about being remembered. It was about making sure kindness had somewhere to go next.
The man stood, thanked David, and walked away smiling. David watched him go, knowing the kindness would continue far beyond this moment.
David returned to the table and quietly waited. He didn't know it yet, but the kindness he gave years ago was about to come full circle.
Minutes later, a familiar figure appeared in the distance. David looked up, surprised, as the man from earlier returned with someone beside him.
David recognized the second man. Years ago, that same stranger had watched David's kindness change someone's life, and now he had returned to say thank you.
David, you probably don't remember me.
David looked closely and remembered. 15 years earlier, this was the stranger whose fare he had quietly paid on that rainy morning.
It was you.
David smiled and shook his head. He never expected that small kindness to be remembered. But the stranger had carried it with him for 15 years.
Then the stranger revealed why he had returned.
That day changed my life.
15 years ago, David's kindness gave him hope. Today, he wanted to give that hope back.
David listened quietly. Then the stranger explained that one small act had inspired him to spend years helping others, just as David had helped him.
David finally understood. The kindness he thought was forgotten had traveled through another life, touching people he would never even meet.
Then David looked at the stranger and smiled. "You didn't just remember my kindness. You turned it into something bigger."
The stranger nodded. David's kindness had become a promise he carried through life. Whenever someone needed help, I remembered that rainy morning. For the first time, David saw the full impact of one simple decision. A few dollars on a rainy morning had created years of kindness. But the stranger hadn't returned only to say thank you. He had discovered that David now needed help.
I came back to return the favor.
The stranger pointed toward the document. He had learned about David's struggle and had already arranged something that could change David's life. "I found out what you've been going through, and I wanted to help."
David picked up the document. It wasn't charity. It was an opportunity, a new beginning arranged by the man he once helped. It isn't charity, David. It's a new beginning.
David stared at the opportunity in his hands. 15 years ago, he had helped a stranger board a bus. Now that stranger was helping him start again.
David tried to speak, but emotion stopped him. Finally, he looked at the stranger and whispered, "I never expected anything in return." The stranger smiled and shook his head.
That's exactly why I never forgot you. You helped me when nobody else would.
David finally understood something powerful. Kindness doesn't disappear when the moment ends. Sometimes it quietly travels through years, waiting for the right moment to return.
David looked at the two men beside him and smiled. For the first time in months, the future no longer felt like something he had to face alone. The stranger had come back to repay a debt. But David realized it was never really a debt. It was simply kindness finding its way home.
David folded the document carefully and held it close. This wasn't the end of his story. Even after the hardest seasons, a new road could still begin.
David took his first step forward. The road ahead was still uncertain, but this time he carried something stronger than fear: hope. Behind him was everything he had lost. Ahead was a chance he never expected. David kept walking, knowing one small act of kindness had changed everything. And as David walked into the morning light, he understood the truth. The smallest kindness can become a lifeline in someone else's story, and someday, perhaps your own. 15 years ago, David gave away a few dollars. He thought it was nothing. But sometimes, the smallest thing you give becomes the biggest thing someone remembers. So if you ever have the chance to help someone, don't underestimate it. You may think it's a small moment, but to someone else, it could change everything.